I'm so thankful and happy you are here. My name is Linda, and this is about we're the next generation. What I mean about that is I just came from a funeral. It was my husband's cousin's mother, and it was a very nice funeral. And it got me to thinking, we're the next. There's nobody left except for us to go next. We've already buried my mother, my husband's mother and dad, and so it's sad. It's very sad. But on another hand, today she had a life that she made after it was bad. She made it good for her. So she was happy until the end. She lived to be 92 years old. That's great. 2 daughters. But the guy she married had a lot of kids. So she had a big family, even though she only had 2 kids. And they were all there. We got to meet some of them, and some we hadn't seen for a long time. And, people change. I didn't even recognize some of them. And I don't know. I sat there and I thought, we found out a year ago that our son-in-law has terminal cancer. He had a mass on his brain, and they cut him open, took it off, and told him it was terminal. There was no cure. So I sat there and I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be tough for my daughter when the time comes. I gotta figure out what to say, what to do. I mean, when it's your daughter, she's going to be left with 3 kids. One's going to be a senior in college. One's going to be in the 7th grade. One's going to be in the 3rd grade. So, anyway, they said he might have 3-4 years left, but he still, it's not the same. He has to wear this big battery pack, like a backpack on his back, and then it's got all these cords going up to this thing he wears on his head, all these wires hooked in it. Even when he goes to work, goes anywhere. And I think he's finished his chemo now. But, so, you don't think you're ever going to get here. It's like, oh my goodness. Can't believe it. Can't believe we're finally at this age. So what I thought was, because of that funeral, it got me to thinking about my grandma. My grandma was my father's mother. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but I never knew my father. My mother, when I was little, and my brother and sister, we were little, she finally got sick of him running around with other women and divorced him. And I was too young to remember him. She had cut all of his pictures off her pictures, so there's this half a picture. We're like, where'd the other part of that picture go? She goes, that was Bob, your dad. So she didn't really hide a lot, but she didn't talk bad about him either. And she said she didn't want any financial support because she didn't want us to see him and him see us. So I thought, well, I might have done that too. She struggled financially with 3 of us. I remember we lived in the country before we moved to a little apartment in town, and she had this car, and whenever we would go around this curve, every day I remembered the curve, we had to hold on to the passenger's door so it wouldn't fly open. Back then, though, we didn't have to wear seat belts and things, but yeah, I remember those hard times. I remember my mother struggling, and but I didn't really know my grandma until I graduated from high school. She was there at my graduation. I came off the field and there she was, and I'd seen pictures of her and things, and it was really nice, really, really nice. She had kept up with all of her other grandchildren, but they lived closer to her. We didn't. So, anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about her because she was an inspiration. I'm just like inspired by her. And I hope you are too. I really do. Now, this is a letter that we all got at her funeral when we walked into the church. Everybody got this letter, and what she did, she made a little quick lifeline of her life, just little bits and pieces of going through her life, and I really enjoyed reading that. I think everybody should do that, because not all the grandkids know you or great-grandkids, but I'm going to talk just a little bit about it, because I didn't know her very much, but when we did get together, I really liked her, and you'll see why. She's such an inspiration. So, Evelyn was her name, and she was born in 1908 in West Virginia. And she was the oldest of 6 children. She was raised on a hill. They had a farm in West Virginia. She went until she was in the 8th grade in a 1-room school, and she rode a horse to get to school. Now, I know we hear of that stuff, but to know your grandma actually did that. And so, in 1925, she married her husband. She had 5 children. 2 died, so she was left with 3 sons. The one was my dad. Mother said that out of those 3, there was only one that actually turned out to be a decent guy. The other one killed himself. So, to go through that with your kids is something else. So, because of those three sons, she had 17 grandchildren, 31 great-grandchildren, and 5 great-great-grandchildren. And once every 3 years or so, she would rent this building in this park where she lived, and all of her, grandchildren, ex-daughter-in-laws, whoever came, brought food, and we had a really good time. And Grandma just loved that. So they got married in 1925, and then in 1956, she tolerated many years of the alcohol addiction and abuse. And she'd had enough. So she loaded him up in her car and took him back to West Virginia to his mother's house. It says she dropped him off and never looked back. And then a year later, she did divorce him. So then he died soon after that. She married a longtime friend. His name was Chester in 1976. She became a surrogate mother to his kids and grandkids, and she just loved it. At the age of 10, Evelyn was baptized. Her career, since she only went to the 8th grade, I can't imagine, but she began her working career in 1937 at a restaurant called Shade's Restaurant as a pastry baker. And that restaurant was named Shade after Helen Shade that she worked for. Her reputation as an excellent pie baker was soon widespread. Then during World War II, she joined the war effort by working at the Curtiss-Wright Aircraft Factory in Columbus as a tool maker. And then after that, she went back to Shade's Restaurant and worked again. So then in 1951, after 7 years of being the pie baker and managing it, then the name had changed to the Wigwam, not Shades, it was Wigwam. So she ended up buying the Wigwam. So she owned a restaurant. It was a very successful business, but then in 1968 she slipped on the ice and fell and struck her head on concrete sidewalk. 3 days later, she suffered a stroke due to blunt force trauma, which resulted in a loss of speech and paralysis. And I didn't know all this until I saw this letter. I knew she had had a stroke, and it affected her right side. So through therapy, they got her speech restored, but her right arm and her right leg never did recover very well. She would carry her right arm kind of like this, but then she also drug her right foot and kind of leg-like, but it did not stop her. She kept going and going. She would never complain. She just took it and went on with her life. She liked, so because of that, because of the paralysis, she was forced to sell the Wigwam. But she still tried to do things she liked, like bowling and things like that, but it wasn't going to work anymore. She was very good friends with her pastor of many years and his wife. She worked at, like the senior center, the church. What she really liked to do when she got, up in years, go to church. Then her and a bunch of ladies would go out to eat a nice dinner, and then after that, they would go to one of their houses to play euchre. And that was really good for all those ladies. She had a lot of important friends and everything, but one really good one was her brother. Out of 6, she was the oldest. I don't know where he fell in the 6, but she stayed close to one of them, his wife and his kids. So that's a good thing. I don't know if he moved away from West Virginia, but so she eventually she had to move where the one son that turned out decent out west in Arizona. She eventually had to move out there to be closer to him. She developed a bleeding ulcer, suffered a heart attack, and then had a congestion heart failure. So she was enrolled in the hospice, a hospice program there for assistance. But then she got well enough and worked hard enough to get back into her apartment. She lived through all that. She did great. But then eventually, because of health, general physical, mental condition, she was deteriorating, so she went back into hospice. She did attend her 93rd birthday on January 27th, but she passed away peacefully in her sleep soon after she had her 93rd birthday. So, like I said, she has given me so much inspiration just by having this letter. I got a picture of her somewhere. Here's her picture. I don't know if you could see her. She had red hair. She always had red hair. She never let it go. She always had her fingernails painted. Always had that smile. That's my grandma. It's the only grandma I had, so I didn't have any grandmas growing up. I see other people and I'm like, I wish I would have had grandmas, but I didn't. Like I said, I didn't get to know her till I was like 18 or 19. Then, as we started having children, we would go visit her, and she cooked these big, huge meals, and we just ate and loved them. She just so much enjoyed doing that. I also have a recipe book. Woo, all the recipes are falling out. Look how old this is. It's so old. But it's recipes from the Wigwam, the restaurant where she worked, where she owned. It's all these restaurants. So one time I talked to this person where I live, and here she's from that area where my grandma lived and owned the Wigwam. And I said, she said, yeah, we have things from the Wigwam inside our museum. And I said, well, I have some things too. So after I did this YouTube, I'm going to call and take this up to them for the Wigwam. And I don't know if they have a picture or not, but maybe that too. I just want to honor her. I want to honor her and thank her for her inspiration, for not ever whining and whatever. I mean, I've been through some hard times. So she has made it easier for me to know what I should do, because I appreciate her. So anyway, I think that you've heard enough about my grandma, but her love lives on. And then there's one more thing that I wanted to share. She loved the birds, cardinals especially, and she had this curio cabinet full of ceramic birds people had given her and things. We got the phone call when she had passed to go in her house, or when she was moving to go in her house. Well, all those other grandkids went in first because they lived close. By the time we got there wasn't much left. But I saw this cute little white swan. I mean, it's just as big as, smaller than my thumb. But I love that swan. It sits on my dresser. And every time I see that, I think of her. My grandkids have asked what that is, and I tell them about the swan and how it reminds me of my grandma. She loved the birds, and it's just so special to me. So, this is my inspiration story for my grandma. So anyway, I thank you so much for being here. I'm so thankful you were here. And I just want you all to have a happy, safe day. Until next time, I will see you later.